Hello, welcome to our Become a Bobcat Diversity series. My name is Amanda Putnam. I am the new Native American and Indigenous Recruiter and Outreach Specialist in the Office of Admissions. I will be your resource on campus, whether you need help scheduling a campus tour to see our wonderful campus, or if you have questions about the admission process, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information will be at the end of the presentation. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please submit them using our Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Our panelists would love to answer them live during our Q&A session. If you need to adjust your audio settings, it's going to be on the lower left, and you can adjust your screen on the upper right. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on the UC Merced Admission Events page in a week or so. Finally, I'd like to remind you about Become a Bobcat Day on April 23rd. This is our biggest event of the spring, and we would love to see you there. Dustin will talk more about that at the end of the presentation, but I wanted to get it on your mind as we begin. This is our agenda for the night. I'm going to do the welcome and land acknowledgement. Then we're going to have a welcome by Dr. Teeny Matlock, a faculty spotlight, panel discussion and Q&A, and then we will close and give our contact information if you have any questions. I want to pause to acknowledge all local Indigenous peoples, including the Yokuts and the Miwoks, who inhabited this land. We embrace their continued connection to this region and thank them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and collaborate on their traditional homeland. Let us now take a moment of silence to pay respect to their elders and to all the Yokuts and Miwok people, past and present. Thank you so much for that. Now I am going to introduce Dr. Teeny Matlock. She is the Vice Provost for Academic Personnel and the Professor of Cognitive Science. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to her.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you tonight for all the organizers of this event and for inviting me to meet our guests tonight. Thank you, guests, for being here. We know you're really busy people, and your presence here is very important tonight. And we'll be having a lively, fun, informative discussion with you. Thanks again. I just wanted to say a few words about some of the activities we're doing on our campus to boost our acknowledgement of Native groups in the local area, in the state of California, and in the nation, and of course in the world as well. It's something our campus values deeply, and we're still a relatively small UC campus, up and coming, but already we have some really nice features, activities, initiatives, and paths in place. And if you come out and join us, if you're students or parents of students, if your folks come our way and you join us as students, or if you're visiting our campus, you'll be able to engage in some of these activities. So keep an eye on us. And we have a website, Native Matters, which could be posted in the website when the chat window when there's time. Just a few words about Talama and what that means for our campus, but in general, Talama is a Miwok word. Miwok is a large group of languages, dialects actually, that are spoken in California. Some of the Miwoks are in the Yosemite Mariposa area. That's where many of my ancestors come from. I'm Southern Sierra Miwok in origin. I have a little bit of Chukchansi too. So Miwok is one of those dialects, and there are many other dialects as well. Talama means bobcat. And for those of you who don't know, bobcat is the mascot for UC Merced. It's a nice, beautiful, powerful, strong mascot. And we chose the word Talama as the banner for a lot of our initiatives and efforts because it embodies that mascot we have. And then it it uniquely reflects the people in the area, the language they speak, and so on. So we're proud of this branding. Southern Sierra Miwok, speaking of that language for a minute, is a Penutian language. It has Moribund status. And just a few words on this. Moribund means that the language is dying. Not unusual for California languages. There were hundreds of Californian languages that were originally spoken, or dialects. Many of them, unfortunately, have died off. Now, with Southern Sierra Miwok, we do have weekend classes and so on. And I know Central Sierra Miwok does as well. So a lot of the Miwok dialects and Yokuts, other languages in California, I'm sure some of you know about some of these efforts. Lots of tribes are trying to save at least the core vocabulary of their language, because the language, as we all know, is so closely related to our culture, our history, and so on. So if you're interested in those sorts of things, reach out, and my colleague Robin DeLugan, who I'll introduce in a few minutes, we can point you to some interesting resources there. All right, couple of people on the slide really quickly, and more information here. So off to the far left, you see that little dwelling. In this area, the Merced, Mariposa, San Joaquin Valley area, a lot of the groups would create what the Yosemite natives call an umacha. It means dwelling. And so a lot of the families would live in these dwellings. Some of the larger, better constructed ones were semi-permanent, or something that people would live in for a long season or a few years. But I mean, a lot of times they just put one up for a few months, or in passing. It's called an umacha. The woman there by herself, that was one of my ancestors, Indian Jane, suffered a lot as a young woman, had a lot of death and just difficult times as a young woman. And I always like to think about her in my day-to-day activities, and should feel gratitude and show gratitude for what I have. It's important for all of you who have that Native ancestry to do similar things. And then we have some baskets there in the middle. Robin could tell you a lot about baskets. She has good expertise here. These baskets were created in Yosemite Valley, and they're a source of great pride for natives in this area. And on our campus, I'm going to tell you about Talama Grove here in a second, but we're planning some events to teach people how to do basketry at this location. And then we have another Native woman and her baby in Yosemite Valley around 1900, 1905. And that woman in the basket is actually the great-grandmother of one of our newer faculty members, Spencer Castro. And as Robin will also attest, our campus has been working very hard on hiring more and more Native American faculty. And so far, so good. We're getting more and more all the time across different fields and different areas. So let's go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Talama Grove, I mentioned this briefly a minute ago. This is a Native American reflection area that we constructed just this last year, and we've already had a blessing there and a couple of other events. We plan to use this location for just a sitting and reflection area. Small classes can go gather there. Our Native American Student Association, Robin will tell you about that. She's the advisor for that group. They do some activities there. We hope to have a powwow this next year or the year after. I already mentioned the basket weaving. We hope we can have some Native dances there, some storytelling, drum circles, and other activities in this lovely, lovely area, which is located near our Science and Engineering building. Next slide. Couple of the features here. It was a lot of fun and meaningful at our blessing that we had in the fall on Native American Indigenous Peoples Day. There are several small oaks in that area. And as we all know, the oak symbolizes growth and has great importance for nourishment for Native groups in California. And there were already 6 saplings there. We planted a new tree at the ceremony. We blessed it, burned sage, and said a prayer. And it represents the future of Native activities on our campus and the ability to connect with natives in the local area and so on. We also planted many other plants, including a chokeberry bush and some redbud and so on. We'll be expanding this a lot. If you're interested in our campus and you're a Native student, if you come out, we'll get you involved in some of these activities to help fortify and expand this lovely little grove. Thank you. Next slide. And then on the monument itself, it's a rough granite rock that came from the foothills not far from Merced, Raymond, specifically for those of you who might know where Raymond, California is. And put a beautiful brass plaque on it. And it says, this UC Merced monument acknowledges all indigenous peoples, including Yokuts and Miwok, who have inhabited or passed through this area. We are grateful for the opportunity to live, learn, and work on their land. We greatly value our connections and collaborations with all local Native groups now and in future generations. Thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, and this one was so much fun. Off to the left there, you can see some people running. That actually wasn't the event that we had in the fall, but it's a depiction of something similar. We had our first 5K Talama run, and we had beautiful t-shirts made up, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great turnout, even though it was a cold day, and it was our first running event like this on our campus. And the whole purpose of this run is to celebrate Native American lives, their history, blessings for good health for all natives and so on. And the chancellor was there, and he was our best participant. He was really engaged. So come on out for this run, even if you're not planning to be a student at our campus. And then off to the right, once again, we hope to have a powwow. Thank you. So I think we can go on to the next slide, and that should take us to the faculty spotlight. I'll say a few minutes about myself, and then I'll introduce my colleague, Robin DeLugan. So once again, my name is Teenie Matlock. I'm in a role called the Vice Provost for Academic Personnel. It's a leadership role on our campus. I came to that position 5 years ago. My position is kind of like, very crudely stated, being the vice principal for the faculty in a way. Always talking to, supporting a lot of our faculty, our professors at various ranks and levels across different departments and so on. And I also work a lot with policies regarding hiring new faculty, advancing them, and so on. It's a big job, it's exciting, and I'll be stepping down from that job soon to go back to my main faculty role. I came from Stanford to UC Merced in 2004. That's when I started. It was a year before the campus opened its doors to undergraduates, and we started having classes. And I came to Merced because, once again, I was from this general area, Mariposa, Yosemite area. That's where I was raised. And I thought, boy, wouldn't that be great to help build a new University of California, my own backyard, and in an area where we really need that to help our people, to help the Native people, but other groups as well, other underrepresented groups. And from the very beginning, even before the campus started, that was one of our main priorities, to attract, bring in, nurture, and support underrepresented minority students. So I'm very proud to be part of that effort as a faculty member. I hung my hat in the cognitive science department. We actually call it cognitive information sciences here at UC Merced. And my research, I've published a lot of articles over the years. I'm in a discipline that publishes a lot of articles in journals and some magazines and so on. But I also have one edited volume that's coming out soon with some colleagues. I study how people communicate, mostly how they use non-literal language, metaphors, to talk about politics, climate change, all sorts of things. And it's a really fun, big, sometimes unwieldy project, but there's a lot to explore and discover in that area, how people think and communicate. And I've been having a lot of fun doing that as a researcher for, 20 some years. And so once I step down from this admin position, I'll be doing that again, working with some students in my lab and with my colleagues here at UC Merced and in other places. Just a little bit about my path and how I came to UC Merced. I grew up in a a family that wasn't very well educated. My grandfather had a fourth grade education. I had a grandmother, though, who graduated from high school. She really wanted to go to Berkeley. She was non-native. My grandfather was native. And he was a really smart guy, but not well educated because he suffered a lot from, having a parent die at a very young age when he was a little boy, 5 years old. And he wound up living in different homes. He had several siblings who were younger. He had to support them. A life that many of you are probably familiar with, that you've heard about in your own family heritage and so on, or people who have that. But I always was told, have a big dream, go to college, you can change everything for yourself. So I grew up in a low-income family, eldest of 5 kids, worked really hard. And I thought, boy, maybe I could go to college someday. So I didn't exactly have my act together when I was really young, because I didn't have much guidance, very little guidance. And I grew up in Mariposa, a tiny little town. And so I wanted to study music and be a brass player. I played trumpet. And I came back to it recently as a hobby after many years, and boy, was I rusty. But I started out as a music major, but pretty early on, I shifted over to languages. I studied 6 different languages. I love learning new languages. And then I kind of drifted into linguistics, the study of structures of language all around the world. And I love that. I wound up getting a master's at Fresno State in linguistics. And then I actually started at community college originally. Then I went on to UC San Diego. I did PhD work there in linguistics. I didn't quite finish. I got right in front of that finish line, and I decided I wanted to teach English for a while. And I did that at UC San Diego. And then I eventually went to UC Santa Cruz, got my PhD in psychology, focusing on the psychology of language in the brain. I went over to Stanford, worked as a postdoctoral researcher, and then as a research associate. And I really enjoyed that. It was a great campus. But as soon as I saw that call for applications for UC Merced, I thought, boy, here's my ticket to go back, help underrepresented minorities in the community get a better education, which is what I wanted initially. And so it's been incredibly exciting and rewarding. And I hope some of you will join us at UC Merced. It's a great campus. And as Dustin and later people in this session tonight will tell you, we're very quickly becoming one of the very best undergraduate educations and graduate educations as well in the state and in the nation. So stay tuned. I think that's all I want to say about myself. And I'm sorry if I went over time a little bit. I apologize for that. I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague, Robin DeLugan, PhD from Berkeley, a very nice, humble, incredibly smart woman who I've known for a very long time. I remember when she gave her job talk at UC Merced, and we were so excited that we were able to hire her. She's an anthropologist, and I'll let her tell you all about herself. Thank you, Robin, and thank you for listening to me tonight.
Great. Oh, well, first I want to thank everybody for being here. And it's always my pleasure to follow my friend and colleague, Teeny Matlock, who's such a stellar colleague. I would just say I'm an anthropologist, sociocultural anthropology. I arrived here to UC Merced in 2006 as one of 2 founding faculty in anthropology to develop the major and the minor in anthropology, and came from Berkeley. I always say we bring the best of Berkeley to UC Merced. We've got a lot of UC faculty at UC Merced and from other places in the country and the world. We've been growing our Native faculty. I am very proud of my Delaware and Cherokee heritage, and my research, my social relationships, my community commitments, they intersect a lot with working with and supporting, collaborating with tribes in California. I'll mention a few projects that we've been involved with, as well as my international work, where I've done quite a bit of work in El Salvador, Central America, where I've also looked at how, when they came out of the Civil War, a country that kind of denied they even had a Native population, began to really look at that more honestly. And again, so that's just a little hint of some of the research that I've been involved with. I've also, kind of surprisingly, maybe as an anthropologist, I'm an ethnographer, which means you do field work, which means you go and hang out with people and you get to know them, and you build a trusting relationship and you figure out what matters to them. That's what I do as an ethnographer. But at UC Merced, I also realized that there's a real opportunity for us to connect our research, our faculty, we're training our grad students, and we're giving our undergraduates research experience too. And the extent that we can connect our research to community collaborators, and so that what we're doing matters to the communities we think we want to know more about, or engage, or understand what their priorities are, or even what the problems and issues are, and how can we as researchers have a role in addressing that. So I think I'm maybe one of a few campus folks, point people, that has been waving the flag of do more community research, community engaged research, and do it in a good way. And that's something I've been really committed to. In addition to anthropology, we have a community research and service minor. It's small, it's about 7 years old, but it's a little program on campus where students from any major, because it's meant to appeal to no matter what school or what major you are, if you want to learn about this approach to how you do research in collaboration with community, highly ethical, very engaged research. I've been a kind of spearhead and faculty director of that minor. That's something I'm really proud of. Just kind of connecting that conversation about community engagement. In 2015, UC Merced won from the Carnegie Foundation, and it's a foundation that kind of ranks universities. Is it a high research university? Is it a liberal arts university? Well, they have this special classification called elective. You don't have to apply for it, but if you want to apply for it, you can. And we did in 2015. And it's to say, are you a community engaged campus? And we won that. It was a big application. It was 2015. We were still pretty new and young. And I think they also thought the promise of UC Merced. Teeny mentioned how we are really making a reputation for ourselves. I like to think that our emphasis on community engagement is one of those areas that we're really excelling at. Doesn't mean everybody's doing community engaged research, nor should they, but there are certain types of research and certain kinds of community interests that really appeal to our faculty and our students to figure out how do we make that connection between research and community. So that's something I'm really excited about and would always be happy to talk to any of you about further. The other thing that I think is kind of relevant is the University of California has a NAGPRA policy, and maybe you know what NAGPRA is. I won't spend a lot of time, but it's Native American Graves Repatriation and Protection Act. And UC has not been as vigilant as it could be about returning ancestors back home. And older research did not pay the proper respect or recognize that, human remains found through archaeology or other kinds of things are actually people's ancestors. So, and I may be speaking to people who are already knowledgeable, but UC developed a policy that says we've got to do better. We've been kind of pressured by the legislature. We've been dragging our feet. Teeny is our chancellor's designee for that policy. I am the repatriation coordinator. And we've been doing this. What's been exciting is 10 campuses lockstep saying we can do better and let's see how we do it together. We just confirmed that our campus does not have any collections that need to be returned or that need to be examined as potentially needing to be returned. We're really happy about that. But one of the really great things about our campus, about that policy, is it encourages every campus to strengthen their relationship with their neighboring tribes, their local neighboring tribes. And that just dovetails so nicely with this work we're doing, like just this very presentation today, to show the values, how UC is reaffirming its commitment to California tribes in this regard. So it's something I'm really proud to be involved with. I think Teeny is as well. I don't know. I guess I have a little bit more time. I just thought I'd mention a couple, like in that vein, in the theme of community collaboration and the kind of ways I've engaged my students in research that are very relevant, I think, to you all. This audience is, I've trained undergraduates who've collaborated with the Tubato Label of the Kern River Valley. Basically, we helped them with their archive, doing research on their archive to advance their process of getting federal recognition. And so the students learned archival research, learned about the Tubato Label, and it was just like a really, really mutually beneficial project. Everybody got so much out of it. The students had hand-on, really relevant, valuable research experience. Another thing I've done is another undergraduate last year, Irene Gonzalez. She did a study of Merced County, and she looked at 5 museums, small and large, in Merced County to see how are the Yokuts being represented in our local public sites of history, culture, and memory. And she found some deficits, things that could be strengthened. But and she also then interviewed members of the Yokuts who are doing a lot of cultural revitalization, language revitalization, and basketry and other things. And she also interviewed them, like, what would they like to see in terms of of how they're being publicly represented. That's just an example of our great students, the great opportunities we have to connect our values and our interests through research locally. One other project, just briefly, was a grad student project. It also involved one undergraduate where they created 3D images, digital images of baskets from Mariposa, from the Sierra Miwok, and some others, and worked with California Indian Basket Weavers Association, CIBA, to say, can we provide you these digital baskets? You can hold them in your hand, like virtual reality. You can see how they're made with such detail, almost as if you had the basket in your hand. And so if basket weavers can't make it up to all the baskets in collections, we thought maybe this is a technology that's going to provide more access. And so that was these are all projects within the last 3 or 4 years, and super, super exciting. Just kind of an illustration of the kinds of ways that we are trying to be collaborative and show the value added of what our research university can do for our local and regional tribes. So I wanted to mention that. I'm almost out of time. I just wanted to say, I think there's another slide there. Yes. So on our campus, we have a couple of organizations where Native students can get involved. One is SACNAS. So there you have the Advancing Chicanos and Hispanics and Native Americans in Science. That's a national organization, and we've got our local chapter. That's a great home, especially for folks in the STEM fields. We also have a student organization, and we call it NISC for short, Native and Indigenous Student Coalition. I am their faculty advisor, and that is another organization of students, very open to all kinds of folks and all kinds of interests. They really care about learning about different cultures, cultural preservation, doing things in the right way, and fostering, they've made hand drums and just different things that they do that is so fantastic. And they have a speaker series going on right now. So these are just 2 examples. There's lots and lots of clubs and orgs at UC Merced, and incoming students, if you feel like there's something missing, you have a chance to create your own organization. The student government funds it to a certain extent, provides resources. And it's just a great way also to either form community, get involved with people who are doing things that you're also interested in, or make your own organization, right? And that's filling a gap that maybe you see at UC Merced. So just to say that we're doing a lot, I think, and always going to do more and continuing to grow. We're a new campus, and fairly new campus. We're in our 17th year, just finishing our 17th year. So I hope you'll be able to join us here and come to Bobcat Day, or come and be a student or be a parent of a student. And we would look forward to getting a chance to carry on these conversations more. I'm going to turn it over now to Dustin Noji, another great pal of ours here on campus. He's the director of admissions, and I'm going to let him take it from here.
Thank you so much, Robin, and thank you again, Teeny, both of you, for your presentation. You know, one of the things that I get the privilege of doing as director of admissions, and I know we're joined both by prospective students as well as admitted students and family members, is just congratulating you. I think both Teeny and Robin were very humble in their introductions. Though we are only 17 years old, being admitted to UC Merced means being admitted to one of the top 40 public research institutions in the nation. And that's a testament to your hard work, your ability to be successful, to be future leaders in whatever endeavor that you choose. And we want to also make sure that we honor your family members and supporters who have gotten you to this point, because we know that oftentimes it takes a community to get to this point, and we want to recognize their achievement as well. I think one of the things that's really important to emphasize is that, you know, you're here today because you're some of the brightest of your schools and communities that you come from, and we want to acknowledge and honor that. Any UC admit is exceptionally talented and bright and has an amazing future in front of them. But one of the things to consider as you're thinking about a campus is not just about being admitted, but also how are you going to be successful and graduate once you actually enter that campus, and what kind of community is there to support you. One of the things that we're very fortunate to have at UC Merced is a small community that fosters inclusion and success as well as care. And I think Teeny and Robin are really two members of our community that speak to that. When I was a transfer student and I applied and was admitted to a University of California campus, one of the things that was really important to me was finding a community on campus. And I remember when I was admitted, being asked to join a talking circle with Joy Harjo, who, if you know anything about Joy Harjo, she's an amazing representative of our community, poet laureate, and had the opportunity to learn from her, to join the community at my UC campus, and to find a place, a home really, away from home, that made me feel comfortable, made me feel that I could be successful during the good times and the bad times. And that was something that really pushed me to decide that that's the place that I wanted to make my home for the next few years. And so part of tonight's event is not only just learning about UC Merced, but really learning about our community, the folks that are involved in that community, and whether or not that makes sense and it's someplace that you want to consider attending for the future. One of the things we're extremely fortunate to have tonight, besides our outstanding faculty and staff, is a representative from our student body, and I want to give her a second to introduce herself. So Jeanette, if you wouldn't mind turning on your camera and just saying hi to our audience tonight.
Hi everyone, my name is Janet Rodriguez. I am a first year majoring in environmental and system science. I'm also in the College of Natural Science. But apart from like many studies, I am the treasurer for the Bobcat Farmers Alliance Network. I'm also a member of the sub-scholarship program we have here at UC Merced. And just the last cohort, I was part of the Value 22 program, which is just a program that is available to all UC Merced students who are in the STEM fields. So basically, like any of you guys are like interested in the next cohort for Value 2023, all you have to be a STEM major, send your application in, and it is funded by Google Research as long as CSU Stanislaus and Merced College.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so now we've entered our portion of the event where you have an opportunity to ask any of our panelists questions, including Jeanette, as well as our faculty, myself, and our staff. Let's start off with the very first question. And I think this is the one that everyone likes to ask. What made you choose UC Merced, Jeanette?
What made me choose UC Merced is because it's like a school, because I'm from the Central Valley, so I didn't want to go too far. Like I would say near home. So basically UC Merced is in the valley for the valley kind of thing. And that really like made me come to UC Merced, because like it's not too far from home, but it's still a nice change. And the atmosphere, like it's in the middle of everywhere. So you're just like with like a couple of drives from Yosemite National Park, and you're near to the bay, and then also from LA. So you're like everywhere at the same time. So that's what made me choose UC Merced, just because of the land of this place.
Awesome. That's a great question. Okay, and we've got another question specifically for you. Why are you involved? What got you involved in the Bobcat Farm Workers Network Alliance?
So what made me get involved in this club specifically? In high school, I was part of the FFA. So all throughout that time, I was really into agriculture, just being outside in the greenhouse and stuff like that. And I'm also like a farm worker myself. So when I found this organization here on campus, they were having elections, and I decided to run too for it. So that's what made me interested in. That's like what I'm part, and that's what I'm planning to continue on doing going forward. Just because we also do like the opportunity to invite speakers in. Last time we had an author of a book come in and talk about his experiences of being an immigrant and a farm worker. So that's what I love, and that's what made me get into that.
Awesome. And being from the Valley, what was that transition like coming from Wasco to Merced?
So the transition was like a little bit shocking for me, but it wasn't like I was too scared. So like it's Wasco is like a small town, like it's still small Central Valley towns, like right next to Bakersfield. So that transition from a small town to like some of the city, it was shocking at first, but I actually liked it because it felt like home. So it's not too far to similar at the same time. You have the open space, like the cows are right there. You see farm orchards and all of that stuff. So it's such a beautiful place. Like if you just love the environment, which is why I'm majoring in it. But that's why.
Awesome. And just a question for our faculty. What are some reasons why you like teaching UC Merced students?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. I guess it's a question for Robin and Teeny if they're still on, and if not, we'll go to another question for you.
Teeny, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll just be really brief. Before I came to UC Merced, sorry, I'm laughing because the contrast is so strong. I taught a little bit at Berkeley as a lecturer. I taught at UC San Diego. I taught at UC Santa Cruz. I taught at Stanford a little bit. And I came to UC Merced, and once we started bringing in our students, I was so impressed. Everybody was there because they wanted to learn and be totally engaged, including in community engaged projects, like Robin was saying. And I have found UC Merced students to be like family. They like being there. They feel safe on our campus. They're very grateful for everything. They want to learn as much as possible. So I love UC Merced students, and I wouldn't want to leave because I love those students so much. So there you go.
I would just echo what Teeny has to say. We have a lot of, Dustin probably has all the statistics, a lot of first generation students, a lot of students who come from lower income families, right? First generation. We have our students really represent the whole state of California in its diversity. We have like a third of the students from the Bay Area and a third from LA, I believe, SoCal, and a third from the Central Valley. So I really feel like we have like our campus really represents the future of California in so many ways. And we used to call them pioneers. We all used to be pioneers for about the first 10 years, pioneering, who's brave enough to come to a new campus and roll up your sleeves and help build it. And the students have a role in that building too, in many, many, many ways, student government and student clubs and orgs and student expressing what they want out of their education, what kind of experiences they want. And I just say it is the most rewarding experience of my life being at UC Merced. I came from Berkeley. I didn't teach I taught one class at Berkeley, but the classes that I taught that I was involved with there, 800 students in an introductory class. And as a professor, you just know you can't connect with all those students. It's just not humanly possible. So our classes are smaller, which really allows me a chance to get to know my students pretty well. And I just treasure that. And some that have gone on and graduated stay in touch, and we try to cheer them on their success here and their success after they leave. And it's just very, very rewarding experience.
Absolutely. And I can just attest to what Robin said. I mean, we're a very diverse campus in terms of both diversity as well as location. Like Robin said, there really is no majority in terms of where our students are from. A third are from Northern California, a third from the Valley, and a third from Southern California. So it's really amazing experience to be a part of our campus. And besides almost 68% of our undergraduates being first generation or low income, they're also incredibly hardworking and folks that have come with amazing backgrounds in what they've done in high school, and they do great work with our professors once they actually come to campus as well. So one thing I did want to ask though, and this came up in the chat, is, and I think this is about a specific program. Who would someone need to talk to if they wanted to learn more about our ethnic studies program? And I think maybe I'm not sure, Robin or Teeny, if you want to speak to maybe our critical race and ethnic studies program. But
well, I can, because I'm an affiliated faculty with them. It's History Crest is the department. And so if you went to the website, they do have a website and they have a contact. So there's a chair. The chair is David Torres Roof. He's the chair of the department. But I would encourage students and or parents to take a look at the faculty. The faculty are listed there. Their particular research interests. You can find out what courses they offer. If you want a major or minor in ethnic studies, what would it look like? There's a lot of information on their website, and our faculty are very open and friendly and encourage folks to reach out to, if you want to learn more. And then of course, our admissions folks, they're, the undergraduate admissions people, admissions and advising. I meant to say admissions folks know a lot about our programs, but advising as well. So for new students coming in, there's an advisor that can help give them and point them to other resources or information about a particular program. And then I believe it's after their second year, right? That then they can go into an advisor that is tied to their intended major too. So it's look at the website. I think it's pretty robust, and I think you'll find a lot of great information. That is a strong growing department as well.
Awesome, thanks so much. And the next question we have is about our student experience. So Jeanette, would you mind speaking to what was the hardest part about being a UC student when you first stepped foot on campus?
I believe the first hardest step for me was knowing I was because I don't know, from my family, I haven't met anyone who has been a college student. So being the first generation student to come to college, was kind of shocking. But then what I really liked is that there was programs like UC Merced that actually helped me ease in to the rigorous courses. So one of the programs I really enjoyed coming to was the STEP Scholarship Program, which is a program targeted to low income or first generation students. So that actually does help a lot of students, especially me, because I had no idea what I was doing or where to go or how to access resources. They're always there, and that they really, really helped me transition from high school to college. So I'm really thankful for the STEP Scholarship Program. But without them, it's pretty difficult, but it is always manageable thanks to the staff here.
Awesome. And for some of our students who are still kind of wondering have never been to Merced, what's the best advice you can give to new students about ways to really integrate themselves and make the most of their campus experience?
I would say attending the on-campus events hosted by CAP. They always have some of the best events. It's always on Saturdays. So it's always those fun events they have. I believe the next one they're going to have Capstastical is going to be downtown Merced. They're going to have a nice comedy show. And then after that events, I believe is going to be Coachella, which everyone on campus is looking forward to. I myself am excited for Coachella. But those events, on-campus events, makes it so much fun to be a UC Merced student, because it's only for UC Merced students, and you go and have fun. You'll make friends. I made most of my friends through those events. So it's UC Merced is such a tight bond community. Everyone's there to help each other. So because I live on campus, I would just go knock on my neighbors or hey, you guys want to go watch a movie in the lounge and you're just gonna have fun. So UC Merced is the reason I'm never planning to transfer. I'm staying UC Merced for all my 4 years is because of the people and the staff here. It's definitely an amazing school if you just want to take it easy and have fun and then also study hard.
Speaking about studying hard, what's the thing that really surprised you that you learned in class for the very first time, being your first college course?
What actually took like an intro to earth system science class, and when I first like went in there, like I was kind of shocked. So like, oh, are you doing labs? Okay, or like, are you doing like hands-on stuff? Because I thought I would imagine I was like that's towards the end, right? But no, like what UC Merced really does, what I really like is that they right off the bat they're like giving you like hands-on experience on stuff that you potentially use in the future. For myself, I did like a lot of like labs outside of classrooms. So I like being outside a lot. So I really liked taking intro to our system science because we were a lot outside of the classroom, just doing like testing the water and pH level, or also like testing the air quality around campus. So those like outside labs really like help you. And like they like also like tell you like if that's what you actually want to do in the future. And they're all like, yes, this is the major for me. This is what I want to do after college. So those outside labs and those like very hands-on stuff is such like a basic part of like all the courses here. And then I took other courses like for my GEs, like I took calculus 1, and what made it easier for me, like at first I was like I kind of found difficulty, but I found that there's also like tutor programs here on campus. Like there's the math center, there's also like camp center, and there's like a lot of like tutoring. So you're never alone. You always have those resources to help you no matter what.
That's awesome. That there's like you said, I think that the one thing that really makes UC Merced like an amazing place is that community. Like every time that I walk on campus, you see somebody else, and you know even with COVID, you can tell that people are smiling and they're willing to say hi and introduce themselves. And it always has that warm atmosphere. So one of the things too, I know like in my transition, thinking about going to a much bigger campus away from home. I'm from the Central Valley too. I'm from Hanford, California. You know, amazing town, but really small compared to where I went to. You know, one of the things I think a lot of our students think about is how do they maintain those ties with their communities, with their family? Like, how do you stay in touch? How do you stay in contact with one another? You know, maybe while you're away at college, because you know, for a lot of us in the community, those bonds are important, right? To maintain our bonds with our family and to help out when we can.
No, yeah, I definitely felt that when I first came to campus, like my first time leaving home, like everyone else, like everyone's like showing. But what I like about UC Merced is that there's actually Lake Yosemite, and sometimes my family comes over, we'll go to Lake Yosemite, have like a nice picnic, or like I'll go back home on Amtrak. So like there's always that connection, like there's always something to do. So what I really like about like Yosemite is like just a couple of steps away. Like you walk 10 minutes, you're at the lake already. So that's like the hangout place for me and my family when they do come to town. But when like I want to go back home, I'll just take Amtrak. And then for like college students, there's like that 15% off. So it's always something helpful. But honestly, like if I don't go to back home, I should just like give them a quick FaceTime call. Like it's always there. So like I always keep that connection. Like even if it's like a 15-minute call a day, you know, just like a quick call. Like that's like the kind of stuff you do like just to keep connections alive. And that's what I do with my parents. I like something like just like hey mom, like how are you doing? Like are you cooking or like what's happening? And then just like a quick catch up. That's what I do personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm old school. We didn't have Facebook and all those other things like when I first started college, and we didn't have FaceTime, so we had to make phone calls. But I think that like just maintaining those connections and things like our family weekends and other opportunities to come and visit campus really help you maintain some of those bonds. So you've been like really involved when you came to campus, which is absolutely phenomenal. What would you say like if a student wants to take advantage of like all these experiences this senior year in high school, what should they focus on really, like as they're preparing to come to college? What are some events that you recommend people attending so they can familiarize themselves with UC Merced, or what are some maybe opportunities they take at their high school to just get ready for that college experience?
Well, first of all, like how I found about many clubs before even coming to UC Merced. I was like on Instagram following a lot of like clubs and organizations because most clubs and organizations, they have their Instagram, they have their Twitter, they have everything. So they'll post like events or like clubs or like what they're doing or what's happening. So before I even started to UC Merced, I knew about like a lot of clubs or what they were planning or what were they doing. That's actually how I found the STEM Scholarship Program. They were posting that the application was still open and like, okay, this is my kind of shot. Let me apply for this. And I found that's why I found out most of things. But when I did come to UC Merced, you'll go like around campus, or you'll be walking to your classes. You'll see a bunch of posters around like the opportunities. That's how I found about the value program. There was a poster in the engineering building where I had one of my labs, and that's how I found about that stuff. So like that, like even like you don't feel like it's going to like those like cab events or just attending like the social gatherings with like clubs. The most clubs have like social gatherings just for you, like even paint rocking. So you'll go to like any clubs. It's open to anyone on campus. I've gone to like this is one of the social like just to play like Uno and Bingo and stuff like that with SACNAS. They always have those events, and it's really fun. You just have to go and do it. And most of the time, like there are like around like 6 or 5. So most of the time you will have time to go to that stuff. So just keep an open eye, either walking around campus or even on Instagram.
Awesome. That's great advice. So I wanted to also kind of like transition back to like the faculty experience, because you really mentioned a lot of like, having these amazing opportunities to get into research and to get involved and take classes where you find faculty are really supportive. So I was kind of curious to hear from Robin and from Teeny, like, what are some classes that you teach? How could we connect with you, or how can some of our community members connect with you if they're interested in taking some of the classes that you mentioned tonight?
Teeny, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go first. Thank you. Quickly, I teach a class called COGS 5, Cognitive and Information Sciences 5, and that's Introduction to Languages and Linguistics. So we do a big survey of all the world's languages. We talk about the structure of those, the sounds in those languages. We also talk about the sociolinguistics in those languages, how people communicate, what matters, what doesn't, and even racial language, racially biased language, all these sorts of things. So that's one of my favorite classes to teach. It's a fairly popular class. And then I also teach a class on, and this one's more for juniors and seniors, on metaphor and thought. So how does the brain process metaphorical language in different contexts? And so those are the main 2 classes that I've taught the last few years. And it's what I'm likely to teach in the future. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Well, I'll segue. So for anthropology, I teach the intro to sociocultural anthropology. It's usually a lot of first-year students are in that class. Some other second year and other ones, but it's a really great introduction to the field of anthropology and the way we approach it. Some of you may know about anthropology or archaeology, which is part of anthropology, and it has kind of a checkered history with Native Americans and California tribes, not out of intention to be bad, but being researchers of their time. And we do a lot of work of trying to, as a discipline, to like improve. And so we incorporate some of that into, I incorporate that into my teaching. We often read Native American anthropologists' work. So it looks really different, when the anthropologist is also being able to represent their own community. And so Mohawk Interruptus by Audra Simpson is a very, very popular anthropology book that we use in a number of our classes. I also teach an upper division class called Indigenous Activism in the Americas, which takes kind of a hemispheric approach, but we also spend a lot of time looking at, because our ethnic studies doesn't really do Native American studies at the current moment. I think it's an area we need to really find some other classes to grow. And so my class is one of those that counts for the CRES major, as well as for anthropology. And I teach that class about every 4 or 5 semesters, depending. And it's really powerful because a lot of students just don't really have a sense about why, when you talk about Native Americans, you're talking about government to government. You're not just talking about an ethnic group, right? And so really kind of educate folks a little bit about history and in solidarity with Native American folks. And I also teach the other class I really like teaching. I'm teaching it right now. It's called Ethnographic Methods. So I teach it as a research design class. So how do you do ethnography, but first and foremost, how do you design a research project? So instead of sending students out to do go take some notes or go observe or go interview, I have them think about what is a good question, how would you approach it, design it in a way, do some literature search on how has that been studied, and then they spend a whole semester designing a class. Some actually continue on and do the project that they spend a whole semester designing. I really like that one because I think it does a lot of skill building for our students to be thinking like researchers, and it's very transferable, not just for ethnography or anthropology, but for any kind of sort of social science related or humanities related research project. So those are the classes among them. I love teaching all the classes I teach. I love the students and the engagement, but those are 3 classes that I really pride myself on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin, and thank you, Teeny. And we are ending the end of our program. So I wanted to give Jeanette one more chance to just talk a little bit about maybe what's the best part about UC Merced, or what's your favorite thing about UC Merced?
I would say the people. The people at UC, like the students here and the faculty really make UC Merced like the best school out here. Most of my friends are like really supportive about like just like pushing me to like stay with my goals, like stay on top of my grades. And the faculty too is like you could just go to office hours, and then it was all about like school related. You just like talk about random things too, and then everyone's so friendly here. So the people make UC Merced a great campus.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeanette. And then I'll leave some parting words in for Teeny and for Robin. What's your favorite part about UC Merced?
I'll go first. I'll just say I ditto what Jeanette just said. The people and the community, the sense of community, and everybody's rolling up their sleeves and working really hard and enjoying it, and it's an awesome environment.
Yeah, and related to that, I'll pile on. When you come to our campus and you're really there, you realize how genuine it is, and you immediately see great potential for possibility. You can do anything at UC Merced, and it gives you a really good foundation to go on to some of the top graduate programs if you want to go on and do a master's or a PhD somewhere, or to get a great job at a place like Amazon or Yosemite National Park or a hospital or an elementary school as a teacher if you get a teaching credential and so on. Tremendous opportunity, and everyone's very nice and respectful, and it can be fun. So I like all of those things.
Awesome. I just want to thank again, like our panelists tonight, Teeny and Robin and Jeanette, and just all of your advice and your responses, because I think first and foremost, as you can hear in their responses, and this is a warm place that's filled with community members who care, and I think that is one of the things that I've always noticed is the big difference at UC Merced. So again, just want to thank you all tonight. There are lots of different ways that you can find out more about our campus. Tonight's event was a part of our Become a Bobcat online event series. And we have a few more upcoming events that are taking place here in the near future. And we're going to show you some of those upcoming events on the next slide. So before I go into that, actually, I wanted to talk to you about some events that are specifically happening with our Native and Indigenous Student Coalition, as well as our Graduate Students of Color Coalition. So our Native and Indigenous Voice series is taking place over the course of this month and the very first part of May. And we would invite you to join our campus community to learn a little bit more about some of the Native voices and Indigenous voices on the UC Merced campus. You can see a flyer there, and we'll make some of that information available in our chat as well. And like I mentioned before, this is one of our Become a Bobcat events. We have some other upcoming events that are taking place over the course of this month that we invite you to join us at to learn a little bit more about the different aspects of our academic programs in our community. And again, you can go to admissions.ucmerced.edu/becomeabobcat to learn more about those events. And then lastly, as all of our panelists have mentioned, one of the things that we truly invite you to do is to come and visit campus. Bobcat Day is April the 23rd, and it's an amazing experience to bring your family, your friends, and even prospective Bobcats, your younger brothers and siblings, to campus to just learn a little bit more about what it means to be a Bobcat, to experience the campus. It's our largest event of the year. We'll have over 5,000 people available. You'll get a chance to tour our facilities, our housing, meet with our amazing faculty like Teeny and Robin, and our students like Jeanette, and ask them all the questions you have about the UC Merced experience. So again, you can sign up right now on April the 23rd. Our event's taking place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be a fabulous day, and we hope to see you there. And so lastly, we hope tonight's event was really more an introduction to our community. We don't like to say goodbye. We like to say we'll see you soon. And so you can connect with Amanda, who you had the opportunity to learn a little bit about our campus community tonight. You can contact her directly by using some of the information available on the screen. Or, as Jeanette mentioned, follow our social media. It's a great way to see what's happening on our campus, to hear from our students, to see what's taking place on a day-to-day basis at our campus community. So on behalf of the University of California, Merced, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank our faculty, our staff, and our students behind the scenes answering all those questions to help put this on event. Thank you so much for attending tonight's event and this evening. A recording of this presentation will be available so you can reference it later. And again, on behalf of the University of California, Merced, congratulations to those of you who've been admitted to our campus, and we hope you have a great evening.